Would you like to learn how to think like the universe? Well, consider this. The universe, unlike any other system ever contrived or developed by human beings, has been a successful working model of evolution and constant improvement, ongoing success and self-preservation for over 14 billion years, or approximately 14 billion years. What we find is that if we look through the lens of natural history, neuroscience, and believe it or not, astrophysics, we can, huckleberries. Oh my God. We can learn how to live in harmony with those laws. When we live in harmony with the laws of the universe, or you might say the principles or core conditions of the universe, then not only do we feel a congruence in and with our world, but remarkably, we find a kind of sustainable success and meaningful satisfaction, resilience, and joy in our personal inner lives. Ultimately, my personal belief or interpretation is that the same laws or principles or conditions that govern the outer world around us since the very inception of creation as we know it itself are the same laws that are at work, albeit symbolically or metaphorically, within our psychology and our spirituality. Now, you've heard of the 10 Commandments. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about the 10 conditions, the 10 conditions that the universe exists by, or that you might say the 10 conditions that we have come to understand about the universe. It's probably more accurately put that way, because let's face it, anything we understand is always filtered through our own personal lens. As you understand these 10 things, you must make note and ask yourself, can I live in accordance with these principles? Are these 10 principles at work in my life? And what would it look like if I applied them in the areas of my life where I struggle? All right, now check this out. In the middle of the forest, I actually have a piece of paper I'm going to hold up and show you. These are our 10 principles right here. So I'm going to read them to you one after the other and explain what they are. The first or starting point, the starting principle, is the principle of mystery and surrender. So surrender follows mystery because where there is mystery, there is an inability to control or solve or fix or manipulate. Mystery is our starting point. When we consider the rigors of science and even the most expansive approaches to spirituality, one thing we can all be sure of is that nobody really understands where this all comes from. Now, we have a pretty good sense, a working model of something called the Big Bang, which itself is not a completely intact theory. There are some things that are still being worked out, how many dimensions exist in reality, and frankly, where did that come from? What were the preconditions to the Big Bang? We have a pretty good idea of how things have unfolded since then, but still no one quite understands if this is the first Big Bang, or if there are others, or if this is all happening inside something else. Ultimately, mystery is our starting point. And then the question is, do you accept mystery in your life? Do you integrate mystery wherever you have stress or struggle? And the interpretation or translation is surrender, letting go, releasing control. In a universe that comes from mystery, then mystery should be how we relate to all things. The next principle we're going to talk about is oneness and interconnection. So if all things have come from this singular point, then at some level all things are an expression of singularity. That means nothing that exists is outside the universe. So everything is the universe. You are the universe. The people that offend you are the universe. This beautiful place around me is the universe. The dirtiest streets of the dirtiest cities are the universe. War and tragedy is the universe. And benevolence and compassion is the universe. So everything is one thing at some level. And that is valuable to understand because that means implicit interconnection and implicit oneness, or it's sort of a weird word, but interpenetration, which means I am in you, you are in me, the all is in the small is in the all. At some level, we have a shared identity. And wouldn't that be a nice way to relate to people, places, and things? The next thing we must recognize, really from a position of astrophysics and science, is that everything is energy. Which means, yes, things are in constant flux and creation and destruction, but somehow they are all expressions of a subtle force. A subtle force, that means your consciousness, your body, your breath, the space between things. Everything is energy at some level. And so it becomes important to think about our life problems and challenges as energy issues and energy equations. The next thing we know about the universe is that from the singularity, diversity has emerged. And if you look around me here, you could see 100 different life forms just in one single frame of the camera. From bugs and birds to types of plants and trees, the world thrives on diversity. When we look at the lessons of regenerative agriculture, we look at the lessons of biodiversity, we know that where there is biodiversity, life thrives, and when biodiversity is constricted, life eventually diminishes. In a similar way, we can even look at economic systems and see the more that there is control and narrowness, there may be short-term success, but ultimately, whether it's scaling an organization or competing with organizations, ultimately, the collaborative, dynamic, diverse, cooperative model will always succeed over time. Continuing on, we have the word multidimensional, and it's really remarkable, but this comes from science. We now know in theoretical physics that if we're going to explain all the phenomena that we see on Earth and in the measured human world, we postulate there are between 9 and 11 additional dimensions beyond, front, back, up, down, right, left, time, and space. 9 other dimensions. This is remarkable. And what it means on a psychological and spiritual level is that there's more to you than what you think. There's more to you than your job, more to you than your mind, more to you than what you have. We are multidimensional beings, and that can be understood in many, many ways. From there, we move on to the creative evolution, or the force of growth, which is innate in all things in life on Earth. Everything changes. And if you want to get with the program, then you're going to align yourself with the intention to grow and change. That brings us to the next principle, which is learning and feedback. Evolution is built on the idea that when things don't work, things modify. As things modify, success, failure, sustaining, collapsing, all that is a kind of feedback loop. And so we are all about learning on this planet. And the question follows, are you about learning in your life on this planet? We're going to run out of time for the rest of them. We have death, birth, and neutrality. We have impermanence. And then we have the balance of yin and yang, expansion and contraction. death, birth, and neutrality are one thing. Everything that is created arises through something that is destroyed, and that teaches us that nothing lasts and all things change, and we will always go through a wave and cycle of expansion and contraction. It's the nature of being.